My name is George Webster. I play William of Orange in Versailles. Thanks for listening. So in the very first season, there's only one scene with William of Orange, and there was sort of suggestions that he might come back for season 2, but nothing was written at that point. So there was very little in the script to go by as him as a character. So I sort of had to delve into the historical archives, if you will, to figure out who he was. I didn't know an awful lot about him, considering how important he was in history of England, of France, of everywhere, really, of Europe. We're not really taught about him in school, but there's a lot of information online about sort of what he was like, what he did, and from that sort of stuff you could kind of infer what sort of man he was like. So I sort of did all that research just for that one scene in season 1, and then when they called me back for season 2, I was like, great, I've already learned all this, let's put it all to use. Yeah, I think there's a sort of self-assurance that William of Orange has. He had this kind of idea as well that he believed really heavily predestiny, that he was determined to become a king, and there was no doubt. It was a real vehement belief of him. I think all actors want to have that belief in themselves. We always try to have it, we might fail sometimes, but that's definitely something that I could draw upon in my more confident phases of my life, where you feel, I'm untouchable here, I'm going to do great. I certainly saw that in him, and also he's quite stroppy as well in some of the scenes. I'm like stomping around and they're shouting at him for being rude, and maybe there's a bit of that in me as well, maybe, on the bad days. Yeah, I think it's so, the scenes worked so well for me and George because of that, I think he was a season in, he'd filmed quite a lot of season 2 by the time these scenes sort of came around, and no one really had, character-wise, challenged him as king. They all questioned him, but no one's really stood up to him and talked to him, like, talked down to him and been an equal. And so there was this odd mutual respect that I don't think he sort of had with many characters in the show prior to William. And there's certain scenes, the way it is shot, there's some camera movements that are exactly the same on me as they are on George, just to sort of help again with that whole mirror image sort of thing. And I think it's a really, really interesting dynamic, and I know that the fans certainly really appreciated the writing of it, of that parallel, because yeah, I don't think his character had that at that point. Yeah, I think so, absolutely. I think, again, these two people had heard about each other since they were boys. The way that the sort of royal families were set up at that point, obviously, people knew who was going to be your enemy at one point. He's over there, you're over here. So they did. When we actually meet, there's this. Again, George is giving is giving William some respect, which isn't something that you necessarily expect from him up until that point. I think that's because he sees exactly himself reflected back, but almost he's the monster in that scenario. And there's that scene where he sort of throws the mask down and loses his cool, and I think me and George are certainly playing on that aspect quite a lot, that he was seeing himself in me, but perhaps not liking what he saw, and that was frustrating him. But it also seemed to clear his head as well when we part at the end of that episode. There's a little nod like, I'll see you again. And I think we both know, again, we both are mature at that point, I think, as people. It's so strange. It's such a huge compliment that I'd even be invited to something like this, that people liked what I did so much in the show that they want to come and meet me and talk about it. And I'll talk all day, and everyone that I've met here today has been so lovely and so kind. And again, I say, like, I don't know how many episodes William appears in, really. There's one in there, maybe 4 or 5 in total, the odd scene here and there. but then to have that sort of impact, I think is one, it really shows how good the writing was, is that people remember the character because you're hearing other characters talk about William in some scenes, and then I might pop up for a scene or two. But then to have that feedback from the fans that they really understood the character and really enjoyed the scenes with me and George, it means the world. And the convention's been so much fun. I can't remember the last time I had this much fun, and everyone's been so lovely and positive as well. It's been really, really good fun. I met Alex when I was going for like my costume fitting. Met him over a lunch, loved him, and then we also did a job together after Versailles finished, a Genius Einstein that Alex was in. But he finished his scenes as I was flying in, so we literally saw each other in the airport departure lounge, where he was through a glass thing. I was like, hey, hey. He's like, hey. But this is the sort of the longest time that I've spent with Alex, and I think it was such a good time. First time I've met Evan, who is just the biggest sweetheart going. I can't wait to watch his gig later. Ty I met before. He's in some of the scenes from season 2 that we were in. I hadn't met Jess before either as well. But it's almost like there's that affinity there. We've all been part of the same project. We all know people in common, whether it was George, I knew George Bagdon obviously. So there's that sort of like pre-approval that you get from knowing someone that knows someone that you're already closer. So yeah, it's been, even in the green room when we're not out there talking to everybody, it's been so much fun, and yeah, it's been really, really, really good. It's a good question. My ideal scenario, if I could like wave a magic wand, is that I would write movies, star in them, and have somebody else direct them and produce them and do all the hard work. I love being behind the camera very much so, but I always tend to find myself in front of the camera, even in the little Assassin's Creed short that we did. We did it for a bit of fun over a month or two with some friends of mine. But I play like 5 different German characters that get killed in it. And I always tend to find myself in it. And I tend to write things, especially if you're in downtime as an actor, you just want to play characters, and I seem to find that by writing things that I'd want to be in. So I'd love to do that, but directing is so hard. Especially because of things I've done, like writing, directing, and starring, and producing all at the same time, some of them, and it's just like, you forget as well. You're there going, why would anybody do this? And then 6 months later, you're back doing it again, because you forgot. It's like childbirth. I'm sure childbirth is worse, but it's similar, I'm sure. Yeah. I just finished on a film, an independent film called God's Petting You, which is completely different to anything I've ever done before. Where I play a heroin addict who falls in love with a sex addict, and they rob her porn star boyfriend to run away together with the money. And it's this crazy, like, kind of Tarantino-esque movie set down in Brighton, where I'm from. It's wild. And so hopefully that'll be coming out towards the end of the year. I'm really excited about that. We've got a really, really good cast down for that. I'm doing an episode of Father Brown, which is like a very popular British detective series. Got some of that coming up. And I've written a short film as well. I'm hoping to, when I get some time, to get that in the can, which, yeah, look out for that any time now. Right, Versailles folks, let's talk business here. Thank you so much for making me feel so welcome and loved today. It's been amazing. And anybody who hasn't made it, what else have you been doing? Obviously come to the next one if we do one. Fingers crossed we will. It's been one of the funnest things I've ever done, and meeting you and hearing all about your lives and stuff, that has been amazing. So thank you very, very much.